Good morning. Welcome to the Election Integrity Committee. Today we will be hearing testimony from Mr. Phani Mantravadi and Ms. Janine Iyer with Check My Vote, who will be speaking to concerns relating the irregularities in the Michigan Bureau of Elections qualified voter file, as well as concerns about transparency in the Michigan Secretary of State's office. Welcome, Mr. Mantravadi. Thank you for coming, and please begin when you are ready. There is a microphone if you would like to turn that on.
Thank you, Representative Smith, and thank you to this honorable committee for having me here today to share my findings over the past 4 years of my work as it pertains to Michigan's voter rolls. And thank you for the attendants who are here from far and wide, and it shows that they care about the state of Michigan's voter rolls. Now, let's start with an agenda that I have in mind that I'll kind of describe the flow of how I'm going to be going about it today. When I click this button, it doesn't move it forward, so I'll do something else here.
Try the arrow, please.
That's what I did. Yeah, okay. We went too far now. Let's jump in two at a time. All right, there we are. So, I'll first begin with describing talking about my involvement with election integrity, how it began, what made me get involved, and then I'll move on to transparency. It's a theme we'll touch on throughout this presentation because today I'm here not only to present a problem, but also to present a solution. And transparency is part of the solution that I'll be presenting today. And then we'll move on to describing some of the irregularities uncovered by the tool I built, checkmyvote.org. And then we'll also touch on the issues of transparency that are hindering the citizens' ability to clean the voter rolls, which are really bloated, as you can see from the presentation. I'll go over in the details of it. Then we're going to look at the aspect of how people can help, and then I'll close out with a call to action. My involvement began with election integrity in the wake of the 2020 November 3rd election. As reports emerged that non-citizens voted, or ineligible people voted, or deceased individuals voted, I grew concerned that my identity, because I'm not a citizen, I'm not a US citizen, concerns grew for me that my identity could have been misused to cast a ballot. Although I love America, I'm on the path of gaining naturalization through the lawful processes. I came here on merit 20 years ago. I did not want a ballot being cast in my name to jeopardize my path to naturalization. So initially, when I came to the problem of election integrity, all the evidence, everything was largely theoretical, circumstantial. If you remember the pizza boxes in the TCF Center, all circumstantial and more theoretical. But I saw a need to bring much needed transparency and find hard fact-based evidence from the voter rolls itself. So I started making FOIA requests for the monthly QVF, as we call it, the qualified voter file, to look for irregularities, to see it for myself and not just go by what's in the news. As part of that investigation, I was led to examine my own record, of which there should be none, honestly, because I am not a citizen and I shouldn't be voting and I don't vote. Thankfully, I didn't find any of my voting history in the voter file, but I did find 2 people registered to vote from my address. I brought it to the notice of the local clerk. Took a while for them to get removed, but they did get removed. Now, that led me into looking into my own precinct, looking out if there's people registered from empty lots, etc., and so on and so forth. So my journey just became organic. It just grew as things arose. I dealt with them, and people started using Check My Vote because they were curious about who is registered to vote from their address and the disposition of their own voting records as present in the voter rolls. So, be that as it may, we'll get into some of the things that we found over the past 4 years in the Michigan's voter rolls. and we'll go over some of the examples we found, and then that's basically just a superficial, because I can't go into every example because there's tons of them. There's probably at least 500,000 of them. I can't go over them all today. So let's talk about transparency for a quick moment. Transparency is crucial for public trust in election outcomes. And election outcomes affect everybody, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, none of the above, if you're apolitical. No, transparency affects everybody. And let's also not forget that transparency is necessary regardless of whether there are problems or not, because transparency favors the truth. And transparency is needed always. More so today because of the problems that have been uncovered. And when there are problems uncovered, we need more transparency because people have questions, and losing faith in election outcomes is a dangerous place to be in. Absolutely, we don't want to get there. So lack of transparency is also causing public to lose trust in election outcomes. But before we go to transparency, where did it start? Bloated voter rolls is where it all began. When I looked at the fact that there are more people on the Michigan voter rolls than the voting age population according to the July 2023 US Census, there's about, as of now, there's 8.19 million as of the May voter rolls. So everything I'm going to show you today is based on the May 1st, 2025 voter rolls. Not old data, it's the most current data that we have available. 8.19 million. And there is about 7.9 million people of voting age population according to the July 2023 census. And people are moving out of Michigan, not coming to Michigan. So the problem is even worse. It's not just 200,000 odd people more in the voter rolls. It's much more than that. When you also consider the fact that the 7.9 million people of voting age population constitutes not only citizens, there's non-citizens also in there. So the problem is even worse, makes my argument stronger. So where is this bloat coming from? Where are all these extra registrations coming from? We'll go over some of the examples now. First, let's go over deceased and duplicates. At this point, I'll switch over to the website that I built because this tool has helped a lot because it essentially brought the voter rolls to the doorsteps of everyday citizens so they can check who is registered to vote from their address. As people use this tool over the past 4 years, we have had so many irregularities come to surface. And I'll go over some of them. We'll also see some entries made by people who found someone who voted from their address, and they put a note in my website. We have ability to, let me back up. Check My Vote does not only expose problems, but it also provides for a way to rectify them. It allows a citizen or a resident to flag or identify a registration that shouldn't be there, and allows for a second-level volunteer to go verify the validity of such a claim and then proceed to prepare challenge. So that's the process here. We have an embedded workflow in the website. I'll switch over to the website now, which is, let me open a new tab. If you go to www.checkmyvote.org, we are live in 3 states. We'll focus on Michigan today. Click on Michigan, and here we are. Let's first look for one example here. Start typing your address, you'll find one registered voter here, challenge status, Jason Lamone Daniel. Click this little clip pad, you'll see some details about this registration. If you notice the year of birth, 1850. This individual fought in the American Civil War. He's on the voter rolls. Thank goodness he's in a challenge state. For how many 100 years, I don't know. But what's also alarming, as you see this grid here, the table shows you their voting history. On the y-axis, when you go from top to bottom, it shows you the QVF snapshots. The topmost one is the May 2025 snapshot. The previous one is April, March. I get a file every month. And this screen shows you the record of any individual's voting as recorded in a given snapshot. The reason is, we'll see in other examples that the voting record also changes. Sometimes they didn't vote, sometimes they voted. So history kind of flip-flops. But in this case, looks like it's pretty consistent. This individual shows as having voted in the November 2020 election, all the way down. And as of the February 2024 voter rolls as of March 2024, we were told we would not be given the voting history, voting method type as part of the history file. That is why it says A there, which means we used to be able to obtain the method of voting of any individual through the monthly QVF FOIA process. A indicates absentee. It's maybe a little understandable to some here because this person was too old to walk to the polls because he was 170 years old at the time of this election. But this kind of touches on transparency a little bit because we also have examples where people say they have voted in person, but their vote is recorded as absentee. There's numerous such examples coming through my website's Contact Us button. Now, why was the voting history method removed, redacted? I call that an unjustified redaction. I don't know why it was removed. There's no justification for it. It's not a personally identifiable information. The reason given was there are some precincts where only one person voted early after the introduction of the early voting method, and it could somehow divulge their method of voting or who they voted for, because you could go to the precinct reporting results and find out one vote went to Democrat, for example, or Republican or Independent, and this person voted, so you could find out. So even though I assume that, even if you assume that's right, that only justifies a small minimal redaction, not the entire voting method type across the 8.1 million records. So let's keep moving here. We'll find a lot more. Now let's go to the scorecard real quick here. There's an algorithm I've written that would take into account various kinds of factors contributing to the bloat of the Michigan voter roll, and assign a score. And the score is basically a representation of the bloat level at each county, precinct, jurisdiction level. So that is the scorecard. I won't go deep into that because we'll want to go into the actual examples. So let's go to the current metrics of Michigan. So far, we've found 3,483 duplicates in Michigan's voter rolls. And over time, since this graph only shows from January 2024 up until May, it's dipping because of the great work of our volunteers. We're identifying duplicates and bringing it to the notice of local clerks, some of whom are really helpful and understand the nature of the problem. And let it be said that before we get into the solution, it's important to acknowledge the existence of a problem. Otherwise, we're never going to get to the solution phase. So it's been a great journey so far. Our respectful interactions with our local clerks have led to some good results as far as removing duplicates and deceased individuals goes. We still have a long way to go. Now, what is the criteria used for identifying duplicates here? There's two types of duplicates being identified. Number one, duplicates at the same address. You got the same first name, same year of birth, and the same address. The last name may differ in some scenarios because a woman got married, changed her last name from the maiden name, but there are two registrations in the voter rolls, one with the maiden name and the married name. Seemingly living with one guy. Now, is that possible? Maybe possible, but highly unlikely. 9 out of 10 cases we find that it's the same individual with two names, two last names, and somehow the list maintenance has failed. The second kind of duplicates are of people who moved. These are harder to pin down unless you go and door knock and find out if they are really there at an address, or if someone takes the civic responsibility of using Check My Vote or any other tools they have, they can even make their own FOIA request and see if they exist on that address as present in the voter rolls. So we'll not go into the second one because the first one itself, we have a lot to talk about. So what I'm going to do here is go to one of the duplicates example, and I'll have to go pull up my notes here for the duplicates real quick. Actually, it's right on here. Let's go to Genesee County. And by the way, these scores are available at all county levels. So go to Genesee County, there's only 254 duplicates. Let's go to the registrations for review in Genesee County. So these are all the different kinds of problems being found. Some of them are fuzzy, some of them involve door knocking and confirming, because we cannot say just because someone is over age 90, it's a problem. So that is where our volunteers begin our work, where you say, you know, it's age 90 plus, so we'll go find out if that individual actually exists or not. But these red ones, boxes, are essentially a slam dunk scenario where you really know that there's a duplicate because of information present on Ancestry.com, for example. If you take the address here that was on the 12368. So we have two people here living at this address, and by the way, I'm not really pointing out there is a problem with this individual here. I'm pointing out a systemic problem. This person is probably a victim of this problem. So I'm not going to point fingers at this individual who I'm showing here is shown as having two registrations in the voter rolls as a duplicate. And look at the same address, and you click the address, it'll take you to the address, and you show that there's one individual living here with seemingly two women with a slightly different last name. One is a hyphenated last name, one is probably the married last name, I'm guessing, but I don't know. But the middle initial is changed a little bit. It's not the full middle name, but it's an initial here. And it's both are in active status. You see the A there. And you click this clipboard, it shows August 2024 primary, voted. Let's take a note of the voter identification number, 2335417. We'll go to the other one. Voted again in August 2024. Now, is it possible that these are two twins living at the same home with the exact same first name, middle initial, and then slightly altered last name? Possible, highly unlikely. What I'm saying here is all this kind of stuff that we see begs the question, what's going on with the voter rolls? We'll go to another example. We'll go to let's go to another one. This is also another source where our voter rolls are getting bloated from. This address, there is 5 people with the exact same name, all born in the same year, 1960. All of them active, okay? Different voter IDs. And you can go look at it in the voter rolls. This is my website, but I'm only showing public record data. This data is all a matter of public record obtained through FOIA request, myself. I'm not taking it from someone else. And this is all in there. Now you look at the voting history, this is a little better because none of these people voted ever, going back 20 years. If you go back 20 years, there's no record of any voting for any of these individuals. Back to November 2004. Now this, again, shows a failure of the NVRA cleanup process. People who haven't voted in 20 years are present 5 times in this example in the voter roll. And I could go on and on because there's so many of them. We go to another one. This is another example. I don't know what this will bring up because I don't remember all of the details, but let's open it up and see. That's what Check My Vote is for. If you don't remember, we could always go and look at it. 12052. What is that address? Wilfred. Okay. Search that address. Now we see how many people here. Seemingly the same person. You have two names with the same year of birth, active, and if you see the voting history, never voted, still active. The other one, same deal. This one voted actually. According to the December 2024 voter rolls, this person voted twice. But it was scrubbed. The very next month, as of January 2025, this person shows as having voted once. And it stayed at once up until May 2025. All this kind of stuff does not really inspire faith in the election systems, particularly the list maintenance aspect of the voter rolls. And this is what it comes back to trust. Public trust is eroding, and we've seen that erosion of public trust over the past few years because of things like this, and it's only exacerbated by a consistent chipping away at the aspect of transparency. The answer that we get most of the time from the Secretary of State is, there was a glitch. There was a glitch, there was a glitch, there was a glitch. What do you get when you have glitchy election systems? We'll get a glitchy SOS. That's what you get. I can keep going. 82 Russell Street, Ypsilanti. Let's go there. I think I'll just leave it there because it just gets the point across. There is so many of these. Can't go over each one of them. Again, looks like the exact same name. The last name is slightly misspelled or missing an R. And the birth year is the same, 1956. And what are the odds that at this address there is two people with those characteristics in terms of name living there? It's not impossible, but unlikely. And I'd say highly unlikely. And this deserves an investigation. Be it adhering to the regular processes of cleaning up the voter rolls or sending a notice saying, please come and present your ID. See, and then take it from there. Those processes are there, written down in the NVRA process, but they're not being followed as evidenced by the symptoms that I'm just demonstrating. So those are the two examples of bloats. Now we can go over and look at different other kinds of bloated sources of where the bloating is coming from. This one we looked at, that's the Civil War veteran. The number of deceased individuals has steadily come down because of the great work of our volunteers. And if you go to the current metrics, and there is all sorts of anomalies that we show here, age 90 plus as of the January 1st, 2025. Again, we don't go to the date to determine the age because Michigan's voter rolls do not provide the entire date of birth, as many other states do. I work with Ohio, Tennessee, their voter rolls have full date of birth. But Michigan only gives you the year of birth, so we calculate the age based on the year. As of January 2024, there were 5,546 age 90 plus. It has steadily come down because people have been doing work looking at findagrave.com or any of these public sources of information to ascertain that an individual has passed away. And then we're not asking the clerk to remove them. We're taking it to the clerk saying, we've done 99% of the work. Could you please take it off across the finish line doing what you need to do? We're not forcing anybody to remove people from the voter rolls. So that is our process. And it's a two-step verification within Check My Vote. We have a first-level volunteer checking basic things, and the second-level volunteer confirms it. And then the third-level volunteer actually decides to take it to a clerk or not, because we do not want to overwhelm the clerks. They're doing a great job. They have things on their plate. We are only trying to assist them with this process because of everything we're finding, citizens feel the need to help. And again, you have across Michigan, or this is not across Michigan, this is more like in Genesee County, there is 85 people who registered before 1942. I mean, all this talks about possibilities. We're not saying this is a problem. We're saying these raise questions. And let's go to the next category, blank apartment unit. Now, this is an interesting case. Let's go back to the slideshow. We've talked about duplicates. We've gone to duplicates again, blank apartment number. This is an interesting one because accurate voter rolls are not only necessary to prevent bloating of the voter rolls so that ineligible people are not present there, but things such as these can cause voter disenfranchisement. As we'll see, many registrations in the voter rolls of individuals who live in apartment complexes do not have an apartment number. So should they request an absentee ballot, where would that absentee ballot get delivered to? The mail carrier wouldn't know where to deliver it to. How would that person vote? So that's a scenario where failure of list maintenance could cause voter disenfranchisement as well. And we can go see some examples as well. And I'm also quoting the MCL that says people who are registered from apartments should have a apartment number if applicable. And that's the MCL 509Q. You can see it in the website. You click the button, it's open for anybody to take a look. And we can go look at some examples of that as well. And most of them are available in the high registration density area of the website. You go and filter by type. You say apartment. Let's pick one that has 6 of them here, let's say. Some of these don't even have an apartment number. They're probably going to have to go by name. Don't know. And there are bigger units which have 500 or 600 units. A mail carrier would not be spending that extra time trying to locate the individual. They're just going to send the mail-in ballot as undeliverable. There's 80 units here. And if you just pick, there's one of them who has an apartment number, but the rest of them don't even have any apartment number on there. Oh, my screen is showing. Okay, let me just wonder why that is. I have to escape that, I think, first. I don't know why it's frozen. Some tech work here, let's see. I'll close that out there. Maybe now it'll show up. Yeah, this is what I was showing. Sorry, I apologize for that. I wasn't looking at that screen. I was only looking here. So what I was showing was a blank apartment. I hope you saw the slide that showed the MCL. Okay, here is the MCL that says if someone is living in an apartment, the apartment number should be present if applicable. So here is a scenario where you have an apartment complex here. One of them has an apartment number here. The rest of the 50 people do not have an apartment number, or maybe some do, yeah. But there are some that don't. So that is a scenario of voter disenfranchisement, because if they request a mail-in ballot, they cannot receive it. Then let's move to the next category. This is I call it plants voting. People who are planted on addresses are voting. And I'll give you an example of an individual who put in a note in the website about what happened with their address. I'm an example, by the way. One of my addresses that people were registered to vote from, one of them voted in the November 2022 election, and they were not living there. I was living there. Actually, I'm sorry, I wasn't. My tenant was living there. I owned the place. So now let's go to this address, 43730. Go to the address. So this individual here, there is one last name that is different here, Giovanni Cavalcanti, and the yellow clipboard indicates that an initial report was made by the resident at this place, the owner of this place, presumably. And the note here says, if you can read that, I'll probably make it bigger. Giovanni Cavalcanti is no longer at this address and was not born in 2000. Year of birth says 2000. This person notes that this is a fraudulent registration. Giovanni was a renter at this address sometime before my family started renting it in 2009. That would make Giovanni 9 years old when we moved into this house, which means their birth year is incorrect. Our neighbor said Giovanni moved to Brazil. We purchased this house in 2015 from the landlord, and only our Cunningham family have lived at this address since 2009. This means no other people should be registered at our address for the past 15 years. About 3 to 5 months before every election, we start receiving mail for Giovanni to go vote. I took photos of the 2020 mail we received for Giovanni, thank you. Now, also interesting to note here, Giovanni voted in the November 2024 election while not residing there. And this is per the Michigan's May 2025 voter rolls. And April and March and February and January and December, and if you go back, yeah, there's no more history because we're talking about the November 2024 election. So the history begins only from December. So that's what I call plants voting. These are people being planted on addresses that are somehow voting. We do not know how. That deserves an investigation. Next example is that of empty lots and land banks. So there's a news article here that says fire destroyed this Ionia County's Hotel California. This is in the Daily News. 663 West Main in Ionia, okay? Now let's see what happens there. 663 in Ionia, while nobody was living there, someone voted in the November 2024 election from there. Let's go take a look. 663 West Main Street, Ionia County. Clear that out. This place was destroyed by fire. It's razed to the ground as of June 2023. And we have people here registered to vote. And this individual supposedly voted in the November 2024 election. I could go on and on with these examples, but I don't want to bore you. I hope this is not boring, by the way, but I hope this is interesting. At least raises some questions in your minds as to, does this deserve an investigation? Do we have an acknowledgement that there is a problem? Only then we can move past into a solution phase where we can actually try to solve the problem. And in Detroit, there is about 100,000 vacant lots as people have moved out. And there are so many examples of people voting from those vacant lots. So we've made a FOIA request. We're making a FOIA request and trying to get that list of addresses. Hopefully we can get that so we can see the scale of the problem. Because right now, we have to go and see, is this house part of the mow zone program is what they call it, because they're mowing these lots because nobody lives there and it's unsightly when the grass grows too long, and the city has commissioned some funds to mow the lawns there. If we can get a list of addresses, 100,000 addresses, we can find out who is registered to vote from those vacant, abandoned buildings. Now that leads into the transparency. So in order for this work to be successful, we need transparency. We need public records data released. Addresses of places do not constitute personally identifiable information. I'm not saying release social security numbers. I'm not saying release driver license numbers. Release after necessary redactions. So bringing back into transparency, there is multiple transparency issues we are encountering. Number one is obstruction of release of public records. And I'll just jump right to this memo issued by Jonathan Brader in July 2023. Says clerks have received electronic copies of EPB materials in various formats. These include requests for an electronic copy of the QVF extract, an electronic poll book flash drive, a comma-separated value format, or other blah, blah. Now, consequences, it says in this memo, as of July 2023, says specifically, disclosure could require purchase of new EPB laptops for each precinct for which data was compromised. Now, I've got 25 years of IT experience and computer knowledge even before that. I'm trying to get my head around what this statement means. Now, I got this laptop here. Let's say I've got some software running on it with people's social security numbers, addresses, and all of this stuff. After necessary redactions, I extract the poll book's QVF extract as it pertains or specific to my precinct, and I fulfill a FOIA request as a clerk, let's say. And I fulfill it by taking that CSV file, putting it in a thumb drive, and putting it in the mail to whoever is requesting it. Or I could email it to them, that CSV file. Or I could upload it to a portal for their download, whatever the means might be. How does that compromise the security of this laptop? I do not understand. Many people don't understand that. Some people are not technically savvy, just probably go by that explanation, but not me. And not many people who have the basic common sense saying, if I email a file from this laptop to someone, do I have to go buy a new laptop? I don't know. That is one kind of obstruction. Exorbitant fees. What I'll show here is, this is my experience of FOIA fees as it has been since the time I've been putting in requests for the daily absentee reports for midterm elections or any general elections. November 2022 midterm, paid $212. August 2024 primary, fees increased to $314.5. November 2024 general, it reached $765 after unreasonable and unjustified redactions happened. Because when I initially got the file for the November 2024 general election, there were the following fields that used to exist up until then: ballot ID, whether a ballot was spoiled; ballot address, meaning where the ballot was sent to; application sent date, received date; ballot sent date, received date. I didn't mention Uokava here, that was missing too. Those are missing, and I went back and asked, could you please give me these fields, because they don't constitute personally identifiable information, and they were being given as of August 2024 up until then. I said, oh, that'll be an extra fee. You can pay that, $450 whatever dollars, and you'll get it. I said, okay, I'll pay it. And I paid it, and I got it. Still haven't gotten ballot ID. But that's the second kind of obstruction. And if you follow this trajectory, where is it going to end? At some point, a common man like me cannot even afford to get this data to even do some basic investigation in the interest of seeing how transparent their government is. And that's not a place where we want to be. That will further erode trust in government and anything that we're trying to do here in public service. So I'm concerned about where this graph is headed. It doubled, almost doubled first time, and then literally more than doubled the second time. And we don't know where that'll end up. Part of this November 2024 election absentee record files was that on October 28th, we found 125,428 illegal ballots cast per the October 28th report. Various explanations were given, but one of my friends put in a FOIA request asking for communications pertaining to that. The fee quoted, $5,316. So it almost looks like the more you have to hide, the more the fees is. That's one way of obstructing public records data. And the last one is also one of the ways that public records data is, one of the ways that transparency is being chipped away. Delays in fulfillment. It takes up to 9 months sometimes to produce simple reports. So we talked about the problems. We talked about the problems facing the solution that we're trying to put in to solve the problem, which is transparency. Let's talk about the solution itself, and I'm getting closer to the point where we can get to the call to action also. Innovative technological solutions built by the people, like checkmyvote.org, bring voter rolls to Michiganders' doorsteps, and frankly, anybody else's, because if you moved out of Michigan into Ohio or Tennessee or wherever else, you could still check your address and see if you're there, and if you are, you can initiate processes to get yourself removed. So this brings much needed transparency to the voter rolls, to the doorsteps of American citizens, frankly. Tools and analytics. We saw some of those graphs. We saw some of those magnitude of the problems. We saw some specific examples, but the magnitude is also there on the website in the form of graphs and high-level dashboard chart information. So if you're part of a county or a precinct, you can go in and look at what kind of problems exist in your precinct. And the numbers are much more manageable because precincts are much smaller, and this system is built in a decentralized manner, ground up. And also it's got a built-in challenge workflow, starting with someone who is residing at an address, identifying that someone who shouldn't be there and marking them as such, thereby routing it to a county lead who can then do some validation, ensure that it is up to snuff, and then if it really merits a challenge, they would do the necessary paperwork to get the challenge placed. And we have statewide research volunteers doing this work out of their own time without expecting a pay, because they love America, they love accuracy, they love transparency, and they want to have trust in election outcomes. So they're trying to help bring accuracy to voter rolls, which is what Check My Vote's motive is too, actually, to restore faith in elections by restoring accuracy to voter rolls. Now let's also remember that election integrity is a very broad topic. There's many aspects to it, whether it is machines being connected to the internet or companies producing results by aggregating counts and such. Those are all beyond the scope of Check My Vote. Where my focus lies is the voter rolls itself, which is the first link in the chain of custody. That's where it all begins. The second one is the poll book, where we don't get any data anymore because of the FOIA obstruction we talked about. The tabulators and the precinct reporting results are outside the scope of what I do, but election integrity is a vast topic. But our focus today in my testimony has been voter rolls specifically. Check My Vote is essentially a citizen's voter roll integrity management toolkit. And accessibility of public records becomes very important. And when I say accessibility, the format in which FOIA is fulfilled is also important, because up until the August 2024, the daily absentee ballot reports that were fulfilled through FOIA requests comprised one file, containing all the fields necessary to look at, going like, when was the app sent? What was the ballot address to which the ballot was sent? When was the ballot sent? When was the ballot? All these fields were all in one file. As of the November 2024, due to no apparent reason, that file was broken into 5 files with extreme redundancy. You have the same field value present in 5 files. It makes it so hard to reconcile, and there was no reason to break this file into 5 files and more than double the fee, and remove some fields. And we also have tools and analytics for volunteers and general public to be aware of their own precincts and look out for their own communities and neighborhoods and their family's addresses. If they have a relative who is 90 or 100 years old, they can look out for them too by checking their address as well, or helping them check for their address. So this is what an individual can do. You can check your voting history as long as we're provided the data, because this solution depends on transparency. Data is the raw material. Public records data is the raw material for Check My Vote. If you want to go above and beyond, people sign up as volunteers or township leads to do whatever I just showed you on the website. When you log in, you can do more things. It's all behind a login wall. I hope you noticed that I had to log in. Maybe I wasn't showing on the screen at that time, but that's for logged in users. Now, volunteers can also interact with residents to confirm. In many cases, you can't interact with the residents to confirm because they don't exist, like the 1850 Civil War veteran. But in many cases, they do exist, So we want to get accuracy. We're not seeking to just remove people from voter rolls. We want to get accuracy into the voter rolls and adherence to the NVRA process and clean up registrations that haven't voted in so long, maybe 10, 15 years. I don't know. They're there. And NVRA says list maintenance is predicated upon activity, voting activity. And we are seeing that there's still registrations in there that shouldn't be, or are not being removed by the list maintenance process. We also have tools for clerks. All of the functionality that I showed and discussed is also available for clerks as well. Clerks can track changes between QVF snapshots. And here is an important point. A lot of the clerks are almost at the point of throwing up their hands in despair because they remove these registrations from the voter rolls, but they somehow come back. So that is indicative of a systemic problem. It is not that we clean the voter rolls and go home. There is a systemic problem that is causing what I call the Lazarus effect of registrations dropping off and somehow coming back. And it's easy to see how our local friendly clerks are maybe frustrated. I would be frustrated if I'm doing work and someone is messing up my work. If I'm laying a driveway pavement and someone is dancing over it and running away, and I'd be frustrated. So similarly, I can understand where some of the clerks might get frustrated because they're doing their work, but registrations are somehow coming from the state level qualified voter file, pouring into their precincts and flooding their voter rolls again, and they do this again. And that's why we have the feature that shows what changes have occurred since the last month snapshot, month after month. So you can stop the bleed as it occurs. And statistics and graphs showing trends and anomalies also are shown. And you can also mark and track questionable registrations to see, to track your progress as to, the ones that are questionable. Because between the point you start research on it to the point of closing the loop on that research, a certain amount of time will elapse, and it's understandable. We're not, it doesn't have to be instantaneous. So with all that said, I want to get to the point of call to action where I want to say that in order for the solution I presented to be effective, we need transparency. And to track down where these registrations are coming into the systems, we want the QVF database transaction logs. And we also want the poll book extracts of the QVFs from precincts after making necessary redactions. Just like the statewide QVF makes the necessary redactions and gives us the file, the poll book can do the same. Precinct poll books can do the same. And we can do a 2-point reconciliation. This feature existed in Check My Vote. I had to remove it because we are no longer getting poll book data. Anybody with an ounce of common sense could say, well, whatever is extracted from a precinct level poll book in terms of the registered voters should reconcile with what the state says are present for that precinct. That feature used to exist. I had to remove it because of lack of transparency. And now we also want to see where the sources of registrations are coming from. An individual going and walking and registering, that's great. But there is a systemic problem as evidenced by things such as bloated registrations that 1850-year-old born, nobody would go register an 1850-year-old born into the voter rolls. Some system is doing it. So timestamps are important because we want to see if there is a massive dump at a certain timestamp at the same second, because people walking into polls and coming in and registering is a different matter. It's all scattered and distributed evenly in time. Restore availability of the voting method data in the QVF. Because before, when that field was available, people were able to see how it's recorded as them having voted, and they never agreed. Most of them did not agree. They said, I did not even vote. Why does it say absentee? And we've seen some testimony from people before here who said never voted and their records are showing absentee. And we also want to restore the previous, I also request that we want to restore the previous format of the daily absentee ballots. Just one file, not 5 broken files with 2.5 times the fee. And the last one might be a stretch, but I do hope there won't be any FOIA fees. And with that, I thank you again for the opportunity to be here to present my findings.
Thank you, Mr. Mantravadi. Appreciate this and find it very interesting for all the work that you have done in building this software program and the algorithms that you have developed. I have a couple of questions. you mentioned numerous times how you used to be able to get more fields involved, part of your FOIA requests.
Yes.
Did you ever ask the Secretary of State why they are eliminating those fields? Did they respond with that? What was their reasoning?
So the daily absentee reports, I was told that I need to pay extra fees because the files formats had changed in the interest of transparency. That was the phrase used in the email I got. Well, they gave me the fields, but I had to pay an extra fee. But I followed up with another email asking, well, yeah, you gave me these fields, thank you, but where is the ballot ID? I still don't see it. I did not get any response for that.
Okay. And you also mentioned that when you get these monthly reports, that the voting history is changing. It's going back and forth sometimes even, what you're finding. Can you explain why that would be occurring? That, in my opinion, should never change.
Right. History should not change. History is recorded, and there is an MCL out there that says any individual's voting history should be maintained for 5 years, and it shouldn't change because if you voted, you voted. It doesn't change month after month after the fact.
Okay. So we will take a few questions from members. And we do have, for the sake of time, also we have another bill that we are hearing testimony on as well. But we will start with Representative Song.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mantravadi, was the 2024 election safe and secure?
Well, in light of all the abnormalities I showed you, why don't you tell me?
Well, because according to your federal lawsuit that was dismissed with prejudice by a federal judge, you said that without court intervention in 2022's election, that significant harm to Michiganders would occur in 2024.
Okay.
So I'm asking you, because you've showed us all of this data, and if you were very concerned about the integrity of our elections, I'm asking you, was the 2024 election safe and secure, or was it stolen?
Well, I find it that very unfortunate that you're focusing on things that refusing to acknowledge that there's problems that I've presented, and your lack of acknowledgement is very unfortunate,
All right,
that there are problems
you
here.
answered it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I think he's made it very, very clear. We don't need to be asking questions whether or not elections are stolen. He's here to present his findings, investigations. It's been very, very clear. Representative Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. So I saw you provided the graph of the daily absentee reports. Are those FOIA requests, are those fees charged on a per record basis? I've done FOIA requests before, and they're usually charged on a per record basis. Was that how these fees were assessed as well?
No, thank you, Representative Wooden. According to the fee breakdown calculation, it said time-based. So I don't know if there's a factor of record-based. Maybe there is, maybe there's not, but it wasn't specifically mentioned in the fee calculation breakdown document.
Well, then, if it's time-based, though, I guess my one thought is this. In between, we have seen a large expansion of the use of absentee voting by mail in this state, and two ballot proposals, one in 2018 and one in 2022, that expanded that use. Mm-hmm. Could it possibly be, as you've seen that graph increase, that just the sheer number of people voting absentee has caused those fees to increase as well, because you have a larger concentration of data, more time that's going to be dealt processing that as they're meeting your FOIA requests?
That's a fair question, Representative Wooden, but I do disagree that it would take much longer to produce a million extra records, because as a database person, a report extract for a million records would take probably about 15 seconds if you write your query right. If it's 2 million, probably take about 25 seconds. And all these time calculations for FOIA are measured in 15-minute increments. And if we are writing a query that takes more than 15 minutes to pull 2 to 3 million records, that means there's something severely wrong with the technological infrastructure or the skills of the people who are making these reports.
Thank you.
Representative Fox.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today. Just a couple of questions. One, do you think that the 2020 election was certifiable?
I have seen a document, the Board of Canvassers of Wayne, that the Republican canvassers never signed it.
Okay,
So based on that fact alone, it shouldn't have been certified.
So it wasn't certified in
It wasn't.
relation to Michigan electors. And I have heard politicians say again and again, well, you know, that's water over the dam. We just need to look forward. And what would you say to that political type of thinking?
Well, if we have a leak in my kitchen faucet, I don't go to work and come back and say, well, you know, the floor is like ankle deep, it's just water under the dam, I don't want to deal with it. Someday, we're going to be drowning.
Okay, thank you very much.
And our final question from Representative Colasar.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I saw that your federal case was dismissed due to lack of standing, and you've talked about some of these victims. My question is, have you reached out to any of those victims to see, since they would have standing, to see if they are willing to file suit?
No, I have not reached out to some of the victims because some of them are not alive, but some of them don't exist. But the ones that have made reports as others having voted from their places, I have not reached out to them, but that's part of the solution. Thank you for asking the question, but that is definitely part of the solution we could possibly pursue.
One very quick follow-up, if I may. Have you contacted law enforcement? If someone's
Me
breaking
personally?
the law, if someone's breaking the law and you've exposed that, have you contacted law enforcement?
Well, I cannot accuse that the people who are showing up in these voter rolls are breaking the law. It is a systemic problem is what my theory was. I do not want to point fingers at the individuals who are showing up as voted because are not voted because many of them don't even know this is happening. So I do not want to go and accuse people without basis. In fact, that's why all I'm saying is transparency is needed to get to the bottom of this so we can find out what is really going on. You're welcome.
And again, thank you so much, Mr. Mantravadi, for coming to give your presentation today. I think you're absolutely right. Transparency is very, very much lacking here in our State Department, and something that we should be working on as a committee and as a legislature as a whole to be holding our Department of State and any other matter, state agency at that point accountable for these things. And having the work that you're doing with trying to restore accuracy to the voting rolls is very, it's a great work that you are doing, and we're grateful for that. This is something that I'm passionate about too. So I thank you for the work that you're doing and for being here and giving your presentation today.
Thank you, Honorable Committee. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. Thank you, everybody else.